Hello, and welcome to Tech for Today. This is the second video of the entire Entra Connect series. This presentation explores the core concepts and architecture of Entra Connect, focusing on the powerful Entra Connect sync solution. We'll start with understanding the key concepts of Entra Connect. First is the sync engine. The sync engine orchestrates the synchronization process, managing data flow between source and target systems. In simple terms, the sync engine is like a translator and messenger for your data. Imagine you have two friends who speak different languages, and you need to make sure they understand each other. The sync engine takes information from your on-premises Active Directory, AD, and translates it into a format that Microsoft Entra ID can understand. It then sends this translated information to Entra ID, ensuring that both systems have the same data. This way, your users, groups, and other important information are always up to date and consistent across both environments. Next is connected data sources or connected directories. This provides identity information to Sync Engine for synchronization with Microsoft Entra ID. The Sync Engine takes identity information from different places, like Active Directory or SQL Server database, any place that stores data in a structured way and allows easy access that can be used by the Sync Engine. These places are called connected data sources or connected directories. Connectors are another key component that facilitate communication between the Sync Engine and connected data sources, ensuring smooth data flow. It is like a bridge that helps the Sync Engine talk to different places. Each type of connected data source has a specific connector. The connector translates a required operation into the format that the connected data source like AD or SQL Server understands. Connectors make API calls to exchange identity information, both read and write, with a connected data source. It is also possible to add a custom connector using the extensible connectivity framework. Data can move either way, but not both ways at the same time. A connector can be set up to let data flow from the data source to the Sync Engine or from the Sync Engine to the data source. However, only one of these actions can happen at a time for each piece of data. The direction can vary for different pieces of data and their details. Synchronization rules. Synchronization rules are guidelines that determine how data is matched and synchronized between different systems. They help ensure that the right information is updated and maintained consistently across all connected data sources. These rules define which data should be synchronized, how it should be transformed, and where it should be sent. Next is attribute flow. The process of copying or transforming data between the connector space and the metaverse is called as attribute flow. Another key concept is provisioning. The creation and management of identity objects in Microsoft Entra ID based on the synchronized data is called provisioning. The image here shows how a connector connects a connected data source to the Sync Engine. Another key concept in Entra Connect is source anchor. The source anchor attribute is defined as an attribute immutable during the lifetime of an object. In simple terms, the source anchor is like a unique ID card for an object that stays the same throughout its life. It helps ensure that the object is recognized as the same both on-premises and in Microsoft Entra ID. This is also called as immutable ID, which means that can't be changed, so once set, this attribute cannot be changed. So during the configuration, it is important to pick a source anchor which supports your scenario. This attribute is used for following scenarios. When rebuilding a Sync Engine server, this attribute links existing objects in Microsoft Entra ID with on-premises objects. When moving from a cloud-only identity to a synchronized identity model, this attribute hard matches existing objects in Microsoft Entra ID with on-premises objects. When using federation, this attribute, along with the user principal name, uniquely identifies a user. Now let's understand how to select a good source anchor. The attribute value must follow these rules. The attribute must be fewer than 60 characters in length. Characters not being AZ, AZ, or 09 are encoded and counted as 3 characters. Not contain special characters must be globally unique, either a string, integer, or binary, shouldn't be based on the user's name, shouldn't be case sensitive, and should be assigned when the object is created. Other points to be considered are, if the source anchor isn't a string, Microsoft Entra Connect will base64 encode it to avoid special characters. Ensure your Federation server, if not ADFS, can also base64 encode the attribute. These are some additional tips that can be considered during installation. For single on-premises forest use object GUD as the source anchor and for or a multi-forest environment, the recommended attribute to use as the source anchor is the ms-ds-consistency guide 2. This attribute helps ensure consistency and uniqueness across different forests. Moving on, let's see the internal structure of the Sync Engine namespace. First is the connector space. The connector space is like a staging area where copies of data from different sources are kept. It's like a waiting room which the Sync Engine uses to see what has changed in the data sources and prepare for new changes. The Sync Engine also uses the connector space to stage outgoing changes for export to the connected data source. Each connector has its own waiting room. Additionally, the Sync Engine keeps track of all staged data and checks if new data has already been synchronized when it arrives. Next is Metaverse. The Metaverse is like a big storage room that combines identity information from different places into one unified view. For example, imagine you have a list of employees from whose designation is changed from manager to senior manager. The Metaverse takes these lists and merges them into one complete list, following rules to make sure everything is synchronized correctly. This way, you have a single, integrated view of all the combined information, thus the user's new roles are accurately represented everywhere. The image here shows the connector space namespace and the Metaverse namespace within the Sync Engine. Next, let's take a look at the architecture of Entra Connect. First, data from sources systems like Active Directory, AD, or SQL Server databases are moved to the Sync Engine with the help of connectors. Connectors act as bridges that connect the Sync Engine to these data sources. The Sync Engine then orchestrates the synchronization process, comparing data, applying rules, and updating target systems. Then the identity data is synchronized to target systems, such as cloud applications or on-premises resources. And as mentioned in the previous slide, the connector space is like temporary storage area for data from data sources. And the Metaverse combines data from all sources into one unified view. This figure here shows the flow, connector space, namespace, and the Metaverse namespace within the Sync Engine. If you have any questions or need further clarification, please feel free to ask in the comment section. Thanks for watching this session of our Entra Connect series here on Tech for Today. In the next video, we'll continue with Part 2 of Key Concepts. Stay tuned.